what is happening with the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup. And I think this is very good because it's something that you have to have for that. And what's currently happening is that there is a three-way television rights tie for the television rights for the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup. Now, in the U.S., none of these channels matter to us because who the hell cares? But I look at this as something that can be used as a leveraging point and talks about it. So apparently, the BBC, ITV, and Channel 4 are all in a three-horse race to be able to secure the television rights for next year's 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup. Now, I find this to be very important because obviously, if you guys have paid attention to the last two Women's Rugby World Cup, 2017, which I've notably said is my single favorite Women's Rugby World Cup of all time, has not been topped in any direction, in my opinion. It is one where I think we saw the first real spike in viewership for the Women's Rugby World Cup. Happened in Ireland. You saw an increase in notation online. You saw an increase in streaming. You saw an increase in attendance as well. Then you fast forward to the 2022 Women's Rugby World Cup that we just had happen recently, and you saw another quote increase in viewership. There were sold out games. This happened to also be in New Zealand, while also kind of under COVID restriction, while also kind of like that. So while I think the numbers for viewership were a little bit better, even though they were difficult to see because it's New Zealand and for most people it's either 6 to 12 hours difference. But the attendance record was definitely up, even despite the fact that it being in New Zealand. You saw more engagement online, and obviously there had been an increase. So this 2025 that's now back in England has been getting all the spotlight in terms of really trying to identify how to maximize this effort fully. We've seen great play out of the Women's Six Nations that are currently happening. Right now, England is looking like they're taking the lead, and it looks like we're looking at another two-horse race between England and New Zealand. While England is 0-2 in the Rugby World Cup against New Zealand, they've been able to see incremental development because of their professional league, because of their selection, just absolutely murdering it during the Six Nations, and are clearly the best team in Europe. Clearly the best team in Europe. But that being said, there is a lot of pressure that goes with this because of the fact that it is a major turning point for this Women's World Cup and is something that World Rugby is really trying to pay attention. Now, as it's been explained, it's era-defining moment for the sport, and there are such high hopes that the tournament can turbocharge women's rugby in a similar way how the Lioness 2022 European Championship transformed women's soccer. Like, it is so heavily being put on. So I know for this, it's great to have this leverage, and you need that. At the same time, I'm hoping that this is a model or that the England Rugby Union can actually use this and help other people around the world, even though they typically don't want other people around the world to do better. But hopefully they can bring this one up along and be able to create a stronger leverage point for these games. World Rugby obviously is putting out more games to try and do this, but this one, I think it can set a very high marker for women's rugby. But let me know what you guys think on this one, man. Like, do you feel like this is one of those games where that leverage point will be important, or do you think they'll really get paid off of this, really? Or do you think that this is just, another step in the cog, but life tends to happen back at fourth? Obviously, I think we're seeing a huge surge in women's sports, and a lot of that is just because of the fact that obviously the work that's getting put in, but I think we're finally seeing the years. With WNBA, we're seeing this new wave, and we're talking about now 20, 25 years. No, not now 20. Oh, my gosh. Almost 30 years of women's basketball. With women's rugby, with the first Rugby World Cup, we're coming up on almost 40 years now. Almost 40 years since the Women's Rugby World Cup, 35 years, give or take. So things starting to have to peak, even though professionalism is what, 28 years old at this point. So we're starting to see the seeds finally come to roost. So I'm hoping this actually helps lead to something that we're looking to.
They're the wheat flour that you can eat. My name is GiftTime in Baylor. I'm here with Health Enhanced Foods. And I want to tell you about one of our best and most beloved products, our sweet white wheat baking mix. Now, this is the baking mix for those who are not really looking for something that's gluten-free, but they are looking for something that they can eat that is going to still be healthy and is not going to be dangerous. White flour is typically a very processed, incredibly bleached flour, and it's not good for you. It's incredibly cheap for a reason. Our sweet white wheat bread mix is whole grain, dairy-free, high in dietary fiber, free of additives, and is absolutely unprocessed and unrefined. With our sweet white wheat bread mix, you can feel like you're getting all the same rewards that you would get from poor white bread, but with all the nutritional value. You're able to still make your bread loaves or your cakes, your flat bread or your cookies, but you don't have to feel like you are going to be robbing yourself of good carbohydrates. You can get the sweet white wheat bread mix from healthenhancedfoods.com. Absolutely go impress your friends and family with the greatest bread while not making them feel like they have to be gluten-free at the same time. No dangers, full body pleasures. Go ahead and get yours today. Let's go.